You're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Hello? Is that the famous astronomer, Sir Patrick Moore?
It is, very much so.
Any news on the space front?
Quite so. Elon Musk has just designed and developed 5 gigantic, state-of-the-art rocket ships. All members of Parliament, along with the American Senate, have first-class tickets aboard them, you see. They're told they're going to the moon.
Told? Where exactly are they going, Sir Patrick?
The new anomaly discovered recently astronomically. A huge black hole.
Welcome to Twin Souls Radio. Your host, Phillip Kinsella. Twin Souls is brought to you in association with the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and we're so glad to be back. Now, our special guest today is Siobhan Nicolaou, and she is an amazing lady, and we've invited her onto the radio because she's got an amazing story to tell you all. Siobhan is a medium, and she's master of energy and also a life coach. And she's the author of The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. And she's an emissary of truth and expressing her spirit as a powerful voice for the evolution of human consciousness. An expert also in the field of alchemical transmutation, and she's encouraged a sovereign approach to spiritual development. Hello, Siobhan, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, so, I was so excited to get you on the radio. And, one of the things I'd love you to tell your listeners is a little bit about yourself and the work that you do.
Well, a little bit about myself. Well, I love my work. Let's just say I could have never created this path for myself. How one gets into something like this is a question I'm always asked. Mm-hmm. And it really is just being born and, going through this process of evolution and having my wake-up call, so long ago in 1987. So I had a lot of living packed into my young life, let's say, my youngest life, and then made a choice at one point in my journey, because we reached a point where I was looking over life, which was perfect according to society's standards, and said, well, if this is really it, then what's the point? And so my pain kind of reached its maximum threshold at this point. So I was negotiating with what I was told was God as a child, but never experienced any light as a child. And that was really the turning point for me. And as I opened up to find meditation over 30 years ago now, that was really the awakening point, because it allowed light to come into my mind for the very first time. And that's when the whole thing kind of began to unfold.
Right. So, I understand that a lot of people in life go through these moments of transformation. I know that I myself went through a major transformation on several occasions within my life. Mm-hmm. And this is a normal theme with certain individuals who have awoken. So can you explain a little bit more about your idea of this awakening? What was it that actually awoken you, if that's okay to ask?
Of course. Well, let's just say I left home when I was 14 years old. And I had a lot of fun in my youngest days. Of course, thank God it was the 70s, it would be much different these days. But this wasn't until I was in my 20s. So I was going along and creating a life that I wanted to and working and all these kinds of things. And my little brother, the youngest of 8, he got into a car accident, which no one expected, 2 weeks before his 18th birthday. Or was it his 17th? It's been so long ago. These stories mean nothing except for teaching now. I think it was his 17th birthday. And so it was quite a shock because it kind of had me reflect on things about how I wasn't prepared to help his sister, who is his twin. And, all these kinds of things, kind of a little reflective period. And then I had another sister who had always been, she was older than I was and always been kind of a problem, a little harder to handle. And she ended up committing suicide 5 months later.
Good Lord.
And so there was a lot of different things involved with what drove her to that. And, I kind of reflected on my own life and said, gee, I really just don't want to end up there.
Yeah.
I think, so
at this point within your life, Siobhan, you went through a major change within the way that you viewed life.
Yes.
And I see.
Well, I had already been married once and divorced and, moving into another phase of life completely by the time I was, 25 years old. So, I got married very, very young. So there's just been, a lot of living. And that was a huge turning point for me. And that was the gift in my sister's death. And we had always had a tumultuous time growing up, and she had some problems no one knew to deal with and all this other things. But it was really the turning point. And then I found out a few years later, as I began to delve into, I went to meditation because there was nothing else. I couldn't find anything I didn't even know there was help. I didn't even know there was such thing as psychotherapy or anything like that. And actually, that was the first step I took, was to try to find healing through that, and ended up leaving halfway into the session and just put my money on the table and left because I didn't feel safe at all. And so I ended up finding another teacher who was a channel, and she also had a degree in psychology, and she did a whole lot of different things. And she was the one, I went to her for a reading, and she opened me up. And that was when the first veil really dropped in terms of my denial. Up until that point, I had done a pretty good job keeping everything down out of feeling range. But is there really, and then I find out it was the time of the harmonic convergence. So in 1987, we had that major shift, 88, 89, was that major shift in the cosmos that allowed a greater opening, a lightening up of the veils that had been holding the consciousness in a certain pattern for so long. So that's when I got my wake-up call, and it just... my soul was just right in time with all of that. So there were a lot of factors. Yes. Wow,
that is absolutely unique. And what I love about you, and I know that your listeners will love, is because this understanding of energy, and how this energy can also be transmuted into a new form of understanding. So this led you obviously into the areas of understanding that light, that energy, because as we know that light carries information. Yes. So can you give us a little bit of a background on what your work entails, Siobhan? What does it actually entail?
Okay, my work now, of course, as I evolve, so does my work. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I find just so fantastic to be on the leading edge, because as I continue to heal, which it never ends, you get some tools like I did so long ago, but I learned how to get a great mental clarity, and I was a channel and taught channeling classes, which was very much white light. And at one point, before I found that using golden light, the beings that I was, quote, channeling from somewhere else were telling me, they were governing the information I was able to impart to people, so I would learn that I am the information I'm seeking outside of myself. And so that turned me around in about 1993, 1994. to utilizing then the golden light, which is a different quality of light in this dimension. People don't often hear me say that because they're so very much hung up in the white light, and white light's what we aspire to be, yet it is within the golden light in this dimension. What I've discovered is that everything in this dimension was created from the vibrational frequency of unconditional love. Therefore, no matter how anything appears to you, it is that love, if you could only remember that. And in order to remember that means that you no longer see something as separate from you, which requires quite a bit of overcoming the ego that keeps you separate from your wholeness. And so it's the way we're taught to see things as opposed to the way they really are. And I've also discovered in my many years of using golden light as the vibrational frequency that helps me overcome judgment, because when we divide, we're being part of the problem. And when we love, we're part of the solution. And the only way to overcome these things is with that love. And so there is a way that we teach people how to meditate, which is also evolving now into more of encouraging people to work with the spirit that they inhaled when they were born, which is our own fragment of God, and work with that consciously and draw from the whole of who you are, which is within that spirit that you are, these different aspects. And there's no need to bring them through you when they come from you. And so we teach people how to work with their spirit consciously to create this relationship with it. Yeah, we're creator beings, and so there are many, there are infinite aspects of ourselves we can draw upon, but to overcome the division that most people still have, even in spiritual realms, that what they're channeling is something outside of them. In other words, we encourage people not to give their power away to something.
That's amazing. And I mean, you obviously are very highly evolved as a spiritual individual, as a soul. And what's interesting, you spoke about the golden light. And
yes,
one of the things that I, as a medium myself, would see around clients were these lights. And this is something that has always fascinated me in terms of the colors of the lights, because they would turn up as very pure. They could sometimes be white, they could be golden, they could be blue. And I remembered there was someone that tried to explain what they meant. And when I see them, I kind of reel back slightly, and the client's normally amazed. And I'm thinking, well, there's someone, I'm not just talking about the person that's being read for, the information coming through, but when the light appears, I'm like, well, that must be their energy. And this whole understanding of what you said really moved me when you said that we are to, not basically give our power away to other people. That's an incredible a piece of information that I always knew as a child and growing up. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's wonderful that you have that innate, we all have that knowing. It's just that we're taught to listen to what other people tell us. We're taught to read all these books and saturate our mental body and think about things instead of have the experience of our becoming. And I never read other people's books on spiritual topics, especially during the earliest parts of my spiritual development, because, again, I was listening to the parts of myself that said you are everything that you want to know and more than you know. And so that's where I learned how to go into the body rather than out of the body, like there's nowhere to go. And when you don't have a practical set of tools in order to teach people how to stay in the form and work with that spirit. And people don't realize, they're not told, when we are forming in the womb, the physical vessel, it is being imprinted with emotional energy. This is why the physical and emotional bodies work hand in hand. And what are they called in spiritual practices? They're called the illusion. So this little vessel is forming in the mother's womb and being imprinted with emotional energy, not about what happens to it, but how it feels about what happens to it. This is where your emotional baggage, where you become divided, happens at the time of conception. Mm-hmm. So when you are literally born into this world, this framework, this construct of duality, the first breath you take is when that spirit that gives you life every day enters your body. Yeah. And it's connected, as you know, to the solar plexus in a silver cord. And we're never taught to work with our spirit. We're taught channel ETs, get aligned with this. We're taught all of this other stuff. And so what we really do is we help people learn how to contain themselves in the presence of their own being, which is the sum total of everything.
Yeah.
And work their life from there. So as a medium for spirit, what we work with are higher levels of consciousness to help people know their sovereignty, and that channeling is fun, but it's not necessary anymore. And it's certainly not advisable to people who are not adept at discernment and other things of that nature. They have to learn about how energy plays and how energy shows up. And do you actually know what you're feeling? Do you know what you're seeing behind what they're showing you? There are many different things. And so it can become quite a kaleidoscope journey for a lot of people who really aren't guided by someone who is within their own wholeness. So, emotional energy, people stuff down in order to survive their childhoods. And then when they allow themselves to be present in being, which means to work with that spirit to stay down below their feet and ground it into the form until it knows that's where it's supposed to live completely. People aren't aware enough to not be, to be in their integrity. I find that many people are not in their integrity because they don't do their own inner work. It's much more glamorous to just channel high vibrational information, but not really live that teaching. So being in who you are and to be self-aware in order just to love yourself more. When you catch your ego running amok, you just go, oh, brother, and you go find that little part of yourself and transform it. So we use golden light to transform whatever the emotional energy is in order to reclaim the light of the soul. So that's why the book is The Absence of Evil. There's many different parts my soul has played over the eons, which have been the best of the worst and the best of the best. And there were things along my timeline in the book, as you could see, that I had to reclaim in order to have the power that I used to have in those realms, but also knowing how to use them in integrity and shining these tools, these abilities now through the energy of love in service to the evolution of humans into consciousness.
Yeah. And, I totally agree with you because, for many years, I kept wondering what the hell is wrong with everyone. They seem like they're robots, and like human consciousness was being conditioned and programmed from an early age. And now that, like yourself, you kind of like go through a process of awakening. And I think that more people are starting to awaken, although they're not quite sure. Thank goodness for souls like yourself who can direct people into the right area of how they can deal with this information.
Yes.
But one of the things I will tell you that's really incredible is that the human brain is merely the receiver, and that we're trying to go through a process of reprogramming. And the light that you talk of is very, very interesting, because I have to say that, although many people that don't understand will, say, oh, I don't believe in this. Well, belief shapes reality, and visualization creates the imagery necessary to bring that through into this reality as a physical thing in more cases than not. It's the brain is just really merely the receiver to bring that information through. So I understand exactly where you're coming from, and also this fight or this suppression from a system that we serve that is absolutely intent in bogging us down with all these problems. But love, as you said, that is the most wonderful thing. Love is the most powerful force within the universe, and I think a lot of people don't love themselves enough because they're told that they're not to be loved, or they don't love themselves.
Well, we're never really taught to love ourselves unless we have parents more like of today that have really make it a point to be really conscious about themselves and how they raise their children. And love isn't something that is soppy and people think it's weak, and it is, like you say, it's a force. Love is a force. It is really what we're here to shine. That the power is the white light, and the white light or spirit lives within the love that we're made of in this dimension. It is the essence of love itself. And so if you were in the sixth dimension or above, where it is white light, then it would be the golden light is an aspect of the white light. But in this dimension, it's kind of shifted, because this is why Yeshua and Buddha and all of these love masters have had to be sent here. These this consciousness had to take form again to be present on the planet to show people how to get to the Father, what the Catholics say.
Yeah.
In order to get to the Father, you have to be something else. Well, this is about loving yourself, because the kingdom of heaven lives within you. It's a frame of it's a perspective. And so you'll get to know the Father when you go through the Son, because the Son is what dissolves, transmutes the duality. And so white light in this dimension creates more duality, because, it polarizes, and people say it's us and them. And so there's light and there's dark, and this is where the different displays of division take place in our society. People think they're being right in the light, and they're pushing against, and that is what's creating more of a problem. And so if people don't come to love themselves, every conflict begins and ends within you. So for heaven's sake, do your inner work, and you'll know what I'm saying. There's no way you can agree with it. You have to experience it. Experience teaches. Words don't teach.
Yeah, I agree, because, I had been a very hard-headed individual, and it takes a lot to convince me of something. But my wake-up within the spiritual aspects was not only attributed to my maternal grandmother, but also to some deaths in my late 20s. And this prompted me to perform an experiment to bring spirit forward. And I was shocked, literally shocked, when a friend of mine who had passed with cancer appeared to me through the conservatory glass doors to our home. And, and I understood then that it's not just the viewing and the understanding of life everlasting and continuation of consciousness, but that, my God, they are able to penetrate this realm. And if they're able to penetrate this realm, then what else can they do? And of course, that led me into looking into how consciousness operates. And of course, the way that we're able to facilitate a new form of training the brain and bringing the mind into balance and bringing those alternative dimensional awarenesses into our field frequency. And, so what I'm admiring of your work is that you're very much aware of those different spheres, energies, lights, and also of your understanding of the spirit and, of course, everlasting life. One of the things I wanted to ask you, Siobhan, is this, and I have to ask this question to you because I'm very curious, and people are entitled to their own opinions, but I know it sways slightly from the work that you do, but why do you think, and I get this question asked so many times, people ask me, what's your opinion on why it is that we as souls descended into this very difficult matrix? What's your understanding or your belief in with regards to that? Have you any ideas at all, Siobhan?
About why we decide to come here?
Yeah. It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a very tough one. And, I can say is, holy cow, who's got time to think of that? Really, I don't think much at all, which has been one of the things that has been really, thank you, God, I don't think very much, because thinking divides, and you can pick something apart. But
yeah.
The answer for me doesn't come from there. It comes from the listening and just from the allowing to unfold. So, why do we come back? Well, I feel that it's actually part of the construct that we're given to make that choice, but we're told that we don't have it. In other words, you have to come back until you clean it up. Well, I don't really believe that that's true. I feel that it's a construct we've been given. Like everything is a construct. People believe that angels are angels, but they're actually aspects of the whole of who you are. They don't have form. They don't have names. They have energetic frequencies. If you look at the names of the archangels as they are given to you as regular humans are told that they actually align with planets. They don't really align, There's so many things that people don't know. They don't understand. And so I feel that anything that we experience here as being for me, it's to come back and reclaim myself as the whole of who I am.
Yeah, that's interesting.
No more separation, no more getting fascinated with all of these things. I mean, I think there's a lot of fascination about energy because it's a lot of fun when you're at that stage. But when you really understand that there's nothing here but love, then it's really been the whole of my focus to overcome what within me would see it as anything other than that.
Right. And so you now tell us about your book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. Can you guide us on, first of all, what prompted you to write that book? And also, are you going to be writing any other books, Siobhan?
Yes, I am actually delving into my second book right now, and I wanted to make this will be in my second book. This is just part of it. You're going to love this. As you're talking about the hemispheres of the brain and how we're taught right and left, and they do all these things. We're here to overcome, I feel all of that. Nothing operates the way you think it does. You've been told it operates that way, therefore it does. When I tune into my own brain, and to people who are, consciously evolving like yourself and others, I have the great pleasure of knowing, you're actually activating the corpus callosum, which is the nerve endings that are right between the right and left lobes of the brain. And that actually becomes where you activate and receive consciousness from. It's no more I'm this or that, I'm masculine, feminine, I'm higher, lower. All of that comes together to function from the whole of who you are, and I believe that it's activating the corpus callosum.
Wow, that's interesting. And so you are working on another book. That's very interesting because
It's
the
going to be a
absence
lot
of
more
evil.
about that. It'll be more of the science of it, the energy of science, science of energy, those kinds of things, and how it really works, and also the parts that you are activating within you that are beyond what you've been told that you're capable of. It's there. I kind of have to laugh because one of the most outdated symbols to me is the yin and yang, because it's balanced in opposition within the whole, and it's just if you dissolve those barriers, then it's a lot more relaxing.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, if you think about it, we are in physicality, but we're also spirit. We're also consciousness. So we are in effect we are one or the other. It's almost like a complete contradiction. We can become one, which is spirit or consciousness, and then we're physical on the other side. But in actual essence, we are one.
Well, we are made of consciousness. It's just that you have to be the one to awaken yourself to the fact that you are. So in other words, the more that you work with the golden light, bringing it into your body and taking this, elaborate journeys through the muscles, into the bones, into the marrow and the bones, seeing the bones as golden light, seeing the cells as golden light, seeing the essence of the cells as golden light. If you do that enough, you begin to experience your body as the consciousness that it really is. And from that state of being and awareness, you can direct your physical body to let go of the illusion of disease. We are not limited to I'm spirit or I'm body. We are all spirit. And so you can have the experience. I truly believe this, and I have nothing better to do in life. So, you can literally you are literally transforming the energy of the physical and emotional body the more you reclaim the light within it. So when you reclaim the light within the emotional body, then it helps lighten up the physical body. And people do it backwards like everything else we're taught. Go to the spa and go, do this and it'll do something, but it's not lasting. The work we teach people to do is lasting. It transforms the emotion of rage to love.
Yes, that's amazing. And, I agree with you there because you hear, and I know for those folk who don't understand and are now getting the information from you, is that there were cases whereby, some doctors were asking the patients to mentally visualize, first of all, a diseased organ and seeing themselves blasting it with rays. And of course, when you're programming the subconscious mind, it's as though this information is being led through the conscious mind to do what it's being told to do, because the central programming from the system is operating through the conscious mind, and it will continue to do that unless you reprogram it. But the light aspect is very interesting. And this, obviously your understanding is that when we die, we return back to source. That is the way that you see it, isn't it, Siobhan? That we are all part of this magnificent energy of consciousness.
Yes. Well, let's face it, Philip. There's a lot of division here to overcome, which is ego, anything that separates you from God is the acronym, anything that edges God out. So it's a belief, it's a feeling, it's all these different things. And so if you spend a whole lifetime from the time you're small, I think it just takes one flip of the switch and you can be self-realized. But, you have to be willing to go through what it takes in order to do that. There is nothing here but consciousness, and that's the big thing. And people say, well, there's nothing here but consciousness. And it's one thing to know that, and it's another thing to have that experience. And so we're big on experience here. We like to soften the language of how people view these things, because when separation says, we never encourage someone to go in, first of all, and say there's something wrong with them, it needs to be healed. Therefore, I'm going to focus light rays upon it. When you see yourself as the love you are moving through the physical body that doesn't know itself to be the love that it is a presence that just awakens. It doesn't see anything as wrong with it that needs to be fixed and blast light onto it. It just simply is a presence. And what I have found through my countless years and thousands and thousands and thousands of times going in to transform my emotional body is that, in the unwavering presence of love, there's only two things that can happen. And it's proved it to myself in so many ways. Number one, it vibes up and becomes the truth of what it is. Or two, it has to leave your experience. Because there are some parts of you that if you are the presence of love, making that love conscious within the physical and emotional body enough, it will choose to surrender and transform into the love, or it just has to leave.
Yeah, do you know, I agree, I'm there with you, because we also have those encounters that people have had when they've had what we call a near-death experience, and they have been severely ill or terminally ill. They have gone into the light, and when they have come back, they have been healed. And it's all to do with not just the light, because most of them see this light. And I feel that perhaps what may be occurring, although we can't prove it, is that the soul that is still connected to the physical body is being brought back up to its correct vibrational frequency of love. And this is the constant theme that we get all the time: love, love, love. And of course we live, and I've got to say this, in a vastly loveless world. So I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing and totally incredible. And I totally get the philosophy and also the mechanics behind what you're saying. So can you give our listeners a little bit of an insight of what they can do, Siobhan, to actually focus this or do some kind of experimentation? What's the easiest method of doing this?
Well, the easiest method of late, when we, if you're looking for an exercise, it's working with that spirit that was God-given. This is the only reason you wake up in the morning. And I think that we just take it for granted. We wake up and we go about our day. But what's actually happening when you open those eyes is this spirit is coming back into the form to give you another day to live. And when you get that and start working with it, telling it, changing the program. And I remember when I did it to myself, I'm like, because I know me and I have to be a little firm with me. And so I would tell it, listen, pal, we're changing the program here. And I need you to be down below my feet every waking moment of my day. I can't do anything that it's being asked of me, blah, 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 blah. I'm doing it with you. So being present in all of it. So making the presence of your being real. Bring that spirit down in the body. If you look at it like a balloon of golden light, right? If you just start with golden light, believe me, you'll end up getting to the white. Your golden light lightens up the more that you transform of the soul to become the spirit that lives within it. So people go, well, dang, but it does evolve. But anyhow, if you were to imagine this golden ball of light connected to the silver cord in the solar plexus, and we let it drift up and out of the body. Most people, it's because what's in this world, we're told that what's important is what you know, not who you are. And so it's all about the mental and spiritual realms, and mostly mental for a lot of people. And so when you realize people have anxiety, they have fear, they have doubt, and that is because the lower part of their auric field is left in the dark. And who's not afraid when they feel separate from love? That's the only reason we ever feel afraid. And so when you're working consciously with that spirit that is you, this big, beautiful golden balloon of light, and bringing it all the way down in the form, you bring it down below the solar plexus and breathe it in. Bring it all the way down below the legs, bring it down below your feet and hold it there. And then we work with people to open the base of the spine and drop anchor. And the reason that we have you do that and to ground is to keep the spirit in the form. That's the only reason why you need to ground, until you work so consciously and cooperatively with that being that it becomes natural. It realizes it's where it's supposed to be. And when it begins to drift, then you can self-correct. You just drop it to the floor again and take another deep breath. We always have you inhale the golden light when you bring the being down below your feet, because again, it's just the same as you being born again. That spirit's coming back into the body. That's something that I work with psychologists as well and psychotherapists, helping them add these different things to their work so they can better help people in their practices. And what people don't understand about a panic attack is the body has been told that when the spirit, and it's pretty much everybody's experience, except Yeshua, that when the spirit is severed from the body dies. And so when your spirit is drifting so far out of the body, above the solar plexus, that the body thinks it's going to die, it goes into what? It goes into a panic mode. And so what does it do? It starts to inhale, trying to keep that spirit in the form, because it knows that's how it got it there to begin with. So energy management is very important. And so work with that loving being that you are. You are so amazing. And when you bring it into every level of who you are, how you are able to express it in the moment and bring that vibration into everything that you do is phenomenal.
Yes, and I totally agree with you, because my understanding of the way that the brain is merely the transmitter and the receiver, yes. And that a lot of the public, God bless them, can't see the wood for the trees because they've been told by a system that doesn't really care for them. That this is what is truth and this is what is not truth. And of course, this total contradiction seems to, mess up their minds. And of course, they submit to the fact that, well, if I'm told that this is the way that things really are, then I must believe that. But people like you and me and many other seekers of the truth, in different areas of what we call the paranormal. I don't quite like that word, but alternative dimensional frequencies of awareness. I mean, we're aware that we are looking for our own truths. And one of the things I discovered through my psychic exploration, I mean, I'm still developing, and I have been for about 20 years. I don't think any of us will have all the answers. But the reality is, you're right. The light is very important. The light is real. I've seen it. And, when you see it, it's kind of like, wow, that's amazing. Even in meditation techniques, I bring in the light through from the crown chakra and through to the body. And, although I don't meditate as much as I used to, because I'm, like you, very busy, I totally understand this concept of light, which is the carrier of information. And of course, I think and feel that what you're doing is amazing, because you're helping people to basically also spiritually realign themselves, so that's wonderful.
Yes, and the thing about meditation is that this is the beauty of this work. The reason people meditate, and this is so funny because you've been meditating as long as I have, if not longer. And so when you remember the old days, right, you sit and you meditate and you feel great, and you get up and you pop back up and go back into banking, or I was in banking at the time when I was waking up. You get up, pop up off the chair and get back to the world. And so you connect, disconnect. Well, this work that we're showing you how to do, when you're completely contained in the love of being, and you learn how to maintain that presence within the whole of who you are while you're walking around with your eyes open during the day, you're equivalent to meditating all the time. It's not just that you're not thinking, because when you're grounded, you can't think. It's, so that's why people like to dance. That's why they like to run. That's why they like to walk in nature, because it gets them out of their head. But that doesn't have to be something you have to do. This is something you already are. And we show you how to stay connected to the truth of who you are, no matter what you're, quote, doing throughout the day. So meditation is going to be obsolete for people who continue to work with this spirit consciously in order to create this dynamic way of being. It's a way of being. There's nothing more you have to do to be who you are. You just have to, your language and your perspective will make these adjustments as you continue to transform the division within you in the emotional body. It's, really the thing I had to ask what I asked myself, Philip, so long ago was, how bad do you want it?
Yeah. And you know what? Yeah, I absolutely. Carry on, Siobhan. I was just going to say something there. You carry on. Yeah,
you have to want it. It's like, Siobhan, how bad do you want it? I'm like, I freaking want it. I want it. Because what? Life isn't worth living if what I've been shown so far is it. It's like, I'm out. There's got to be another world that is different than this. And so.
I agree with you. And you know what? You've said it. You've hit the nail right on the head, because I was the same. I was like, is this it? And this feeling came to me when a grandfather of mine died when I was 10 years of age. And I thought, well, everyone's not talking about death and not talking about our purpose here. And and I've got to say here, I was a pretty screwed up child in terms of my understanding of what we were told was reality. Right. And you know what? I was always seeking, and the truth of the matter is, and I only deal like you with the truth, the holy truth, and nothing but the truth. I wanted the truth. And I know I'm involved in other areas of research, but one of the things I was more desperate to find, that when you lose someone that you love and, in the family, and they are gone, my God, I wanted to find them. And you know what? Something incredible happened to me in my late 20s when I saw a medium who worked for the FBI in America. And I had never seen a medium before, although my maternal grandmother had been a medium, but not a working medium like you or I. But she wiped the floor with me, Siobhan. I mean, she knew I was there to try and bring her down, because she said, you're such a hothead and a hard case with this. I'm going to bring you down to earth. And she did, because when I drove there, I had to stop. And this is the day before mobile phones were really all around. And I had to stop and ask two ladies how to get to this place. And I got there, and the medium sat me down, and she was lovely and very young and a beautiful young lady. And she sat there and she said to me, did you stop and ask two people how to get here? And she saw the color drain from my face. And I'm like, oh my God, how the hell did she know that? And I'm like, I need to find out where she got that from. And like this then, of course, after the 2-hour reading that she gave me, well, I sat in my car, and Siobhan, I put my head down on the steering wheel to the car, and I cried. And do you know why I cried? I cried because there was so much more. And we hadn't been told. And the media machine tells you, well, it's a load of rubbish, it's hocus pocus. And I'm thinking to myself, well, actually, that's a load of baloney, because I've just seen someone who has wiped the floor with me that thought my name was Peter and had no information on me, so it's incredible.
It really, really is. I mean, who'd have thought? I mean, I never did. My life has always moved so quickly it's just been incredible. And the first time I remember seeing a spirit, I was 7 years old. And of course, Siobhan was always I should have been the kid in the bubble to my family. I was allergic to everything. My body, what it was is that I'm extremely sensitive. So I was allergic to everything and different things, everybody, and I was getting sick all the time. And that's because I was shut down so much that this energy, this knowing I had, was being repressed and oppressed and depressed, and I was having to hold it in. And when I have to hold it in, it creates disease in my body. There has to be a way for me to express. And so a lot of that went away. Like when I left home at 14, it was a miracle how many physical things just kind of stopped happening for me. But I could have never imagined, again, because I didn't think. I pretty much thought life was going to clip along just like everybody else, and the key to life was being accepted by, the best that you could do in everything and being accepted by society. I have known 180 people in my life who've died, and was so much death, in childhood, even when we were kids, growing up in the neighborhood. It just kept snowballing and snowballing and snowballing. And it would explain, if I would have realized that there was even such a thing as a medium, really, because I always looked at it as channeling, because that was the first, it would have made life would have made so much more sense to me. It would have also, if I had known then what I know now, it would have explained so much about why I experienced life the way I did. Because when you're as incredibly sensitive as we are, and you have a lot of relationships and you live a lot of life, you're also absorbing a lot of energy from everywhere else, in resonance, of course, but it also becomes bigger through you. And when you're a medium and you don't know it, that can be very interesting and colorful. Gee whiz. So my book is really about that. It's about my journey from, my childhood all the way through my awakening, and the different aspects of being that have been with me, some still with me, and others have just, become something else altogether. But it just takes you through these different chapters of my life, if you will, till about 6 years ago when I left New England and headed back to California. But, like I say, it doesn't matter what I've done in life. I've always done this work. Spirit will put me in places that it wants me to be, because I have a very advanced skill set in order to deal with very intense energies. So part of my work is focused on welcoming those opportunities to harmonize and heal homes and things of that nature.
And that is one of the most important aspects, I think, of the spiritual work that people do. I mean, healing and understanding the what I call the basically the spiritual biosphere of the body. Your book, we have to plug this, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. The listeners out there, you've got to go and get this book, because it's a beautiful book. It's beautifully written. And there's a lot of pain in there as well. But I find that you were able to get past that point. It's like a journey, a really intense journey, Siobhan, that you've gone through. And one of the things I have to say to you about that is it takes a lot of courage for someone to look into the mirror of their soul and understand that they want to change the course of their destiny. And your calling has been to help other people. And it's almost, you also have this ability in knowing the people that you're going to connect with, because, when I connected with you, I don't know why, I've got to say this. You reminded me of the lovely lady that was the president's wife, the first lady in Independence Day. I saw the lovely picture and you thought, she looks like her. She says, Siobhan looks like her. And it's like, how you get these images in your head of these souls. But seriously, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul, is a book which tells you categorically how you can heal, and also of the fact that, life is hard. We do question. We do go through a process of awakening. And the question is, did we awaken in a past life, or have we awoken in this life? Well, the way I see it is that things happen for a reason. And your idea also, your understanding of disease is very interesting, Siobhan, because a lot of people, I think, myself included, hold a lot of things in and don't deal with them. And this is why I went through a lot of illness and myself, particularly this year. But your techniques are incredible. Do you have a case you're able to describe to our listeners, something that really, sometimes we have a most amazing thing that's happened. I mean, what's one of the most amazing things that's happened to you, Siobhan, in terms of healing or something of this nature?
In a physical sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so me, I used to have, I'm my best student and client because, I do the work, right? So, so I continue to evolve. I got to say, quite frankly, I encourage people to utilize these tools, and I coach them in using these tools because I want them to have their own experience. There is nothing I do that heals anybody. The source energy within them is what is able to heal somebody, and all they have to do is be open enough. Something has to open them enough, and they have to be receptive enough in order for that to happen. But when I've given spirit talks, this is usually they're fun workshops. People come and they want to get a message or something from someone that they believe is departed. And we give a little brief talk, and then we go into having this fun, expressing spirit, the highest part of the person who has gone. And we've had 3 instances where I never even intended this to happen, but I've had reports where, someone who had migraines for 30 years, they came in and we helped them with something. We just were there giving a spirit talk, and they haven't had migraines since. I had one of my students did one of my workshops, the art of alchemical transmutation, and we took him through the technique, and I just love him so much. He's one of my youngest students. He's just now turned 24, and these whippersnappers, I tell you, they just know everything coming in, so much more than we ever did. So he goes into this, we do the process with him, and when he was small, he had emotional energy. Well, he couldn't really hear, and his family didn't know that. So there was a lot of misunderstandings as he was growing up because he didn't know how to express what was happening, and he's a very multidimensional being anyway. So what that did was that kept he was holding on to the emotional energy about how he felt about the situation around him in his environment. And so he went through the process in the workshop, which was fantastic. And he called me the next day and he said, "Gosh, Siobhan, this is great. I've got an ear infection." And I said, "Well, far out, because what happens is when you transform the energy in the emotional body, the physical body then lets go of how it's been holding on to it to become a physical manifestation." So again, that's something we were taught to do backwards. Go take care of the physical body and it'll do something with the emotional body. But actually the emotional energy, unchecked and untransformed, is what creates the physical manifestation of illness. So we went in and we did it that way. So I said, "Well, that's great. Good for you. Good work on that. If your body's releasing this on a physical level." And then a couple of days later, he called and he goes, "Wow, this is really getting kind of, intense and blah, blah, blah." So he went to the doctor and they gave him a Z-Pack or something. And then a couple of days later, he called me and he goes, "Well, he went to the hospital because he had this nodule then that formed in his, on the side of his, where his ears are, the ear tubes or something." And so they were draining the stuff that was coming, in the hospital. And so he asked me to do a session with him and transforming the energy. He was absolutely scared. He was in so much pain. And we just sat with him and we did a session and worked with him and just took him really into this deep space. And he wasn't able to eat. He was in too much pain. They weren't going to let him out of the hospital and all this other stuff. And he went to sleep after that. And he woke up the next day and he just walked out of the hospital like nothing happened. So myself, I go through these different things. Like I had a hole in my heart and I healed that. A few years ago, I was working on things connected to my root chakra, which was really becoming the consciousness that I am the source of my own security. That was really something I was working on. And so I manifested this, I had this very dramatic physical manifestation that had me going to the doctor and having these tests being done. Actually, I was having, just asking them to give me medication for the pain, because I said, just give me the stuff so I can get through and I'm doing the inner work the whole time. So they took me through a CAT scan. They took me through anything just to show me that absolutely is nothing wrong with me physically. And it probably took 9 months for me to process through it all. And then, boom, it just is non-existent. So
wow, that's incredible.
So it does happen, and this young man, God bless this little guy, he he was really, he does the work. He goes in and he does it. It's no big deal. He goes in, he realizes how simple it is to just be the love that you are and be that presence so powerfully that which within you doesn't know itself to be love, knows that love is there. It's always been there. And then when it, embraces the golden light that is observing it, as something that still believes that it's separate from, you just reclaim that and you reclaim it and you reclaim it. And now more than ever, you're able to transform so much more at one time.
Yeah, I understand because interestingly, reading about certain psychics, I mean, especially, I'm sure you've heard of Edgar Cayce. He used to go into a slight trance and then he would take his sitter and tell them what the remedy was for their illness and why the illness occurred. And when they came to the realization of that, they seemed to be cured in this life. So it's there's different ways of doing it, but the technique is very, very powerful. So what would you say, Siobhan, to those people that deal with anger? Because we know that anger or repressed emotions, how, because a lot of people, and I said, well, I'm not an expert in that department. I'm just a medium. I don't deal with this type of energy. So you go ahead. You tell us what they can do to help themselves, because there's a lot of anger in that world at the moment. How can they help themselves?
Well, one thing people have to realize is that the part of them that is in rage, and rage has been, I'm like, Phillip had to read my book. I mean, the emotion that has been the largest in me has been rage, and not only rage but hatred and frustration and annoyed and all these different things. People don't think are levels of anger, but they actually are. There are many lesser levels of anger. Even being annoyed or kind of resistant, if you really got in touch with that, you'd be able to transform it before it got bigger. But because as a child I was so held in everything. I was just, they kept a lid on me so tight that it's got to come out somewhere. And when you are as sensitive as someone like you and I, when you're in an environment around people who are also angry, that anger will magnify through you, because guess what? We're a medium, right? We're really mediums of, with many skills. So people have to realize they are magnifying the anger in the world, but that anger is actually a very small piece of who they actually are. And the way to be able to know and to experience what I'm saying is to work with that spirit, because golden light does not resist. Love just loves. Okay? Yeah. It doesn't care. It doesn't divide. It doesn't go, look at that darkness over there. It doesn't even pay any attention. It just loves. It's not concerned about that over there. And so because there's no resistance in golden light, nothing that wants to entice it or engage it is able to do that. White light says, I must protect myself from the evil that is in the world. And that takes a lot of energy, because you're always pushing something away because you believe that it's there. Now, it's true that in this world, in this dimension, there is that. But that's not the way to move through it with ease. And it's certainly not the way to move through it without dividing, which it becomes part of the problem rather than the solution. Because if you're out there in the white light fighting evil, then you're empowering the fact that the world believes that there's evil.
Yes.
And evil is something that doesn't know itself to be the love that it is. And believe me, as you've read through the chapters of my book, there have been some extremely interesting parts of myself I discovered that literally made me physically ill to have to own that. But in the unwavering presence of love, I have been able to transform those parts that were very hard for me to look at, very hard for me to admit, very, very hard for me to most people would rather not, let's just say. So,
your book's very honest. Your book is very honest, and, I understand. And that's why I asked the question, because, your listeners will probably want to read that in the book and to see, because I think that's something that's very interesting and fascinated me. And also the truth, the honesty, the love that comes from the pages of your book. I mean, it's so beautiful to see how you're transforming. Even when you're writing, it's like you're transforming. You're beginning to transform yourself and turning everything on its head. And you've done it. And, if you see where you are now within life, okay, not every day is a bunch of roses. poses. I mean, we get up and then we have to invent ourselves. We've got to take to the stage of life. We act, we get tired. But it's also dealing with, which you do with a lot of the energies that's out there in the world with different people, because you suck it up. And it's like, oh my God, how the hell I'm so tired. And you get negative people, angry people, and yeah.
When you're contained in golden light, they can't take anything from you because you're resourcing yourself. You're literally contained in the presence of being from head to toe and holding your presence there. And so it's when you're, holding the golden being of love, it just is. And so because you're not separating yourself. When someone comes to me and they're upset, like the anger, it's like, sit down. I mean, I have a big stick and I will use it. I don't let people, I say, oh, hold on a second. That's why, my spirit is the sword of truth. I don't take crap. And, I've had so many, experiences of people trying to intimidate me or this and that. And it's like, I don't think so, pal. I've seen things that you would run from. So you're not going to be frightening me. But the anger thing is important. When you learn how to stay grounded and really just go in and find that very small part of you that's actually containing that anger, it's back in that small child somewhere, because the bulk of our emotional energy, all of it, in fact, is forming within the physical body. That's why they're so important to heal. The emotional heals the physical. It transforms the physical as well. From the time you're conceived until the time you're about 8 years old. And then the mind begins to divide by identifying how it feels and then creating a story, which then empowers the energy of division in the world. But when you settle down and find that where that energy of rage is living within you, you'll pull up a small child there who hasn't ever expressed how to the depths of how it felt, of the father being so mean or the mother being so cruel. And so through my own process, I mean, it's been thousands of times I have gone through this, and I continue to do it. And the only way I can describe it these days is kind of like atomic. It's like a nuclear experience within me. It's just very powerful. But the rage is wonderful because when you are able to be the presence of love, and allow the part of you that is angry while you're grounded to come forward, you realize how small it is, because you're then not becoming the feeling of anger, which then becomes an emotion, because a feeling and emotions are two different things. The feeling of rage is one thing. The expression of rage, or rage that in motion, is an emotion, and then it's usually spouted out into the world to cause a problem. And so when you're just seeing the child there and allowing the child to come up while you're grounded and allowing that child to express how it felt, and I'll tell you, my child has done things inside of me to express rage like I could have never thought of with my own mind. And I don't think about what I see or feel. I just allow her to express it. And it shows you the depths. The only thing that's happening is nothing within you, except you're allowing that child to express itself for the very first time. And so it'll show you the depths of the rage by what it does to express it within the auric field. And if you're grounded, you're not affecting anyone outside of you, because energy doesn't dissipate. And so if you're talking negatively and blah, 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 it's just adding to the matrix. It's adding to the duality. And when you own how you feel and transform that energy, you're altering the matrix. You're changing the numbers.
And I agree with you, because this is an important subject, a very important subject. And what you do, Siobhan, is extremely important, because let's face it, in this world today, we are in a real mess, and there are more people now looking for other people to help them. I mean, I'm not just talking about this incident that's occurred here. That's just kind of like built upon the problems that people are having, psychological problems. And Siobhan, you are there to help lead them, to guide them, to reestablish their link and of who and what they really represent on a spiritual level.
Yes.
And I think that is amazing, because you've taken a step forward that's very unique and very individual. And I think that you're a beautiful soul, and I think that your book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul is a very important book for people to read. And I think that they will find out more about you and what you've gone through and how you transformed your life.
Yeah.
And by that ability in transmuting yourself, going through a transformation yourself. So I think that's really, really beautiful. And we are coming slowly to the end of the show. And I just want to say, first of all, Siobhan, that it's been an absolute delight to have you on Twin Souls. And I'm very much an admirer of your work, not just as a medium or a master of energy and a life coach, but also as an author of The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul. I'm really looking forward to your next book. And I think that, an analysis of a lot of what you've gone through and what you teach is something that will be very much looked forward to. And so as an emissary of truth, and as a soul that's helping other people, I think it's wonderful. So tell us, how can people? We've spoken about your book, so push away. How can people get hold of you, Siobhan?
Well, let's see. We have. You can get a hold of us through email, which is always good. My website is myname.com, and so that's a little tricky because it's a lot of vowels. But it's S as in Sam, I-O, B as in boy, H-A-N, NICOLAOU.com. My email address is Sovereign Mastery. So watch the E and the I on that, SOVEREIGN, mastery @gmail.com. But you can go to the website and drop us a line, and go to Facebook and like my page. And it's Siobhan Nicolaou, The Sword of Truth is the Facebook page. And my philosophy is, if people are really coming to me and they want help, truly, I will give them everything I've got.
That is wonderful. And don't forget also the book, The Absence of Evil, Love's Reclamation of the Soul, a beautiful book. Go out and buy it, and check Siobhan out, because she's an amazing soul, an amazing person, and we're delighted to have you on board for Twin Souls Radio, Siobhan. So thank you very much for coming on board.
So much for having me, Philip.
And you're more than welcome. And you've been listening to the Twin Souls radio program in association with the Paranormal Radio Network. And as we say to all our listeners, stay safe. Keep safe and look to the stars. God bless.